What up, everybody? It's the one and only Super 7 here with the first edition of what We Are Ward 7 podcast, where we highlight wonderful individuals from the Ward 7 section of Washington, D.C. Today, in the first episode, we got a guy that everybody in the room know. Y'all know him?
Oh
Y'all
yeah,
know him.
yeah.
Everybody in the room know him. I'm sure a lot of people across Ward 7 know him from his times living in Ward 7, doing work in Ward 7, just being a busy guy throughout Ward 7. He's a guy that I met, how long ago was that? What's this, 2026?
Yeah, about 6 or 7 years.
About
maybe.
5, 6, 7 years ago when I moved to Ward 7,
Yeah.
back to Ward 7,
Right.
to his SMD, not his SMD,
Oh, ANC 70.
ANC 7E,
Yep.
and he's definitely been somebody that's been supportive towards me, what I do in the community. Got me all up in the ANC 7 situation as a commissioner. And just been out here doing for the kids, doing for the community, just being just a good guy. Just the kind of guy that we always want to be aware of what he got going on. Somebody who we always want to have in our corner because he always gonna kind of be there for us. Yep, put your hands together and show some love for Mr. Ebbon Allen. What's going on, EB?
Tim, Super Tim, that's what they call you. Man, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here on this We Are Ward 7 podcast. It's good to be here, my guy.
We are Ward 7. I want to make sure we always highlight not just Black people in DC, but Black people that come from the parts of DC that don't talk about enough. So like I said, somebody who's lived in Ward, I've lived in a bunch of places in Ward 7. Like I said, an ANC commissioner doing community service, and I always want to bring whatever, even though I'm not in Ward 7 anymore, whatever I do, I always want to bring it back to Ward 7, Ward 8, east of the river in general, because of people like Evan who inspire me to do a lot. So we're gonna talk about Evan and his upbringing in Ward 7, what makes him love Ward 7 so much, and the things that he is doing in Ward 7, and then we might have a little question and answer situation, and just keep it PG. That's all I ask. So Evan, growing up in Ward 7, what was it like growing up in Ward 7? What was it like growing up in Ward 7? What time in history were you growing up in Ward 7?
Excellent question. Again, happy to be here on the We Are Ward 7 podcast. Want to give a shout out to everybody that's here to support me, from my Fletcher Johnson alums to the ANC commissioners in 7E and 7B, or Davis, my brother Darren. Grateful for all you guys to be here in attendance. I'm Ebbon Allen, born and raised in what they call civic betterment in Southeast Washington, D.C., off of Bennett Road, Southeast. Grew up on a one-way street called Hannah Place, Southeast. Basically a family home. My grandparents moved there in the 1950s. My mom was raised there with 9 other siblings on Hannah Place. So we got a rich history and foundation. Actually, the house that my grandmother and my grandparents bought was built by A.U. Hannah. Hannah Place was named after. So I was born in the 1970s, raised by a single mom who also grew up on Hannah Place. My father, God rest his soul, he grew up in Lincoln Heights. I had a brother by my dad who grew up in Bennett Terrace, also known as Simple City. And so for me growing up on Hannah Place and the civic betterment and Bennett Road community, it was a lot going on. But I am forever grateful to, be a 70s baby, but also the journey of, attending schools like C.W. Harris Elementary, Fletcher Johnson Educational Center. And also, I had my time going to the Bennett Park Rec, spending a little bit of time with my uncles at that rec center, especially on outdoor basketball courts. And then, I can take it all the way back to corner store was called Ann's Record Shop. There was a Mr. Robinson Barbershop, H Street Southeast. It was Ann's Cleaners. Before it was the 24-hour store, it was the 7-Eleven. And so a lot of history, a lot of memories growing up on that Bennett Road Southeast corridor. So I have, I built a lot of great childhood friendships there. I used to hang with a couple of guys like Kevin and Norman and Nook. And so I really enjoyed the journey growing up around civic betterment. Pretty much now we pretty much joined with Marshall Heights, but from that Bennett Park community to 8th Street to 53rd Street, it's been a great journey. But I also thank my parents, man, for having me and raising me in Ward 7. So it's been a great journey. Again, I did lose my dad when I was 12. He was 35 years young. So I have some pretty good memories being around my pops. But I dedicate a lot to my mom being a single mom, raising a young African American male. I'm in the heart of DC, in the city, especially when you talk about the crack epidemic, a lot of the gun violence that traumatized all of us, throughout our journey. So just happy that, I had a mom invested, made a lot of sacrifices. Um, and I saw, hard work and dedication. And so that just molded me, to make her happy, also just build a better environment and opportunity for myself. So, going to Ward 7, I thank Ward 7, but, part of my journey, we left Hannah Place and we did go to PG County. I went to high school out there, a school called Frederick Douglass High School. I went there from 10th to 12th grade. After I left Fletcher Johnson, my mom and I went out to Prince George's County. I graduated from Frederick Douglass High School. And so, it was a great journey as well. But majority of the time was definitely in Ward 7. And I think because of that foundation and what I experienced, my friends experienced, my peers experienced, I wanted to come back.
You, a lot of people, especially during that time, the crack epidemic, was a lot of violence, not a lot of opportunities. Did what your mom did and left. My mom left and took us. She made sure, regardless where we lived, that in DC, we was going to school in PG County
Right.
because what DC Public Schools was providing was
Mhm.
not a lot,
Right.
and she wanted to make sure we had that good foundation.
Mhm.
So coming from Ward 7 and then being in a situation where you left, your mom decided to leave, how does that
Mhm.
make you feel when you look at people who don't feel like, whether it's Ward 7, Ward 8, or DC in general, that staying in DC, staying in Ward 7
Right.
is good enough to grow, develop, learn, and become successful adults?
Answer the question. I think everybody's situation is different. I think, a lot of us going to DC public schools, whether it was in and out of DC public schools, whether it was, community centers, rec center, boys and girls clubs. Back then it was pretty much more of a village. We far removed from that, but the village made a lot of difference. And I think a lot of folks, I hear people always valuing, go-go music and keeping the music here and making it the genre of DC, but DC has so much history when you're talking about landmarks, when you're talking about communities. And I think, we've had families that really supported one another back in my time growing up. People held you accountable, and there was a lot of love.
Can I ask a question?
Not right now. You're gonna try to take over my show.
Big mistake they could. DC public school system provided a beautiful education. I went to Ann Bed, Susan, Blue, then went to Morehouse. When you went to Morehouse, all the lot of guys from DC, we all had DC public school education
Right.
and provided very well for them. All the kids that had the private schools and Catholic schools. And I kind of laughed, even on my knees. I got at least just graduated in 2019.
Mhm.
Public school in DC. And did very well as very, very well. I'm impressed with the public school system. So when you said that kind of irritated.
What's kind of different, her being a graduate in 2019, like it was a lot different in the 80s and coming up during that time. So like they've improved a lot. I've worked in these public schools, so I understand there's been a lot of changes. They put a lot of money into renovating and rebuilding the schools to make them look better.
I think we all criticize
Yeah. So Tim, no,
But
no.
like,
So yeah.
I understand it's been a change over the years, but during the time when we was in
How old
school,
are you?
I'm 45.
I'm 65. Like I
Okay.
said, public school.
And I understand all that. And I had family going to school in DC, and it was crazy. And that's why my mama didn't want me there. And it was a lot going on that a lot of people didn't. So I understand there's a lot of good coming out, but it wasn't all good. We can probably say that about any hood, any urban city, or the case may be. And those who made it out, wonderful. But it was a lot that did. And that's just the reality during those times when we was in elementary school in the 80s, in junior high and high school in the 90s. And then as we get into the 2000s, these kids nowadays have a better opportunity to graduate from a public school and have more resources than the public school system or schools in general had in the 80s and 90s. That's just where my perspective is coming from.
I don't like my niece graduated public school. She graduated in 1996. Did very well.
Yeah, I'm not saying nobody has
Okay.
came out and did good going to public schools, but it was also a challenge.
Well, you said everybody's experiences.
Yeah.
And that's across the board.
Yeah.
It's like, if sister talking, it's like Evan, when we moved to Upper Marlboro, I was buying a house for us. And sometimes even today I regret it because after I moved to the house and signed a contract for the property, Evan got a call. I got a call from McKinley High School, and he had been accepted at McKinley High School.
Very hard.
And the thing about it was a really challenging choice for me to make because there was a lot of crime in DC during that time. But if I was going to send him to school at McKinley, living in Upper Marlboro, you know, it would have been a college. They were going to charge me a college
Tuition.
tuition for my son to go to McKinley.
Okay.
Yeah, so everybody's experience is different, and that's one of the things that I have regretted. And I even check with Evan sometimes because I just sometimes still weigh it, and I don't know how that would have impacted him differently if he had gone to McKinley Tech. But you know, he turned out fine.
Yeah, I'm assuming he did. I'm assuming he did.
So to talk about what Ricky was talking about though, because you know back in even our times, Tim, we had, you know, a lot of the high schools recruited in junior high schools, and Zakia and a lot of my Fletcher Johnson, you know, alums could to tell you, you know, McKinley Tech had the Penn Center back then, right? And so when they actually came to recruit all throughout the junior high schools out DC, it really kept students engaged, right? And so when McKinley came to Fletcher Johnson, they had a mass communications program, and I said, I don't want to go to HD Woodson, I don't want to go to Easter, I don't even want to go to Phelps or Chamberlain. I wanted to go into McKinley Tech to go into mass media, right? And so that made a difference. And so when you hear a lot of people like natives talk about why the vocational tech go out of these schools, right? Now you have charter schools, right? But now we're back in 2026, and we need our students to be certified because everybody can't afford to go to college, right? So you got to have these kids certified to have a backup plan, and including entrepreneurship, right? And those particular things. And so what Ricky's talking about, when you talk about like Ballou High School, there was plenty of guys at Morehouse that went to Ballou because they were in like a math and science program, right? And those guys are very successful.
High school start ninth grade. It did. I was in eighth grade. Took all the small students, every junior high school, because it's all over the blue. So we took math twice a day, science twice a week. Like I said, that was a line right straight to Morehouse. And up to teachers that came from that. But the public school system.
And so, you know, and then HD Woodson back then, you know, my peers from Fletcher Johnson would tell you HD Woodson had a business and finance program. And so, like Ricky said, I met one of the young men while I was in Atlanta, and I asked him, you know, what made him choose Morehouse, and he said, you know, I was in a business and finance program at Woodson, and you know, he did research on the business program at Morehouse, and so that was one of the reasons why he was able to make the matriculation from HD Woodson's business and finance down to Atlanta. So like I said, everybody's situation is different, but I will tell you what, you know, Takia, some of my other classmates and teammates would say about Fletcher Johnson. It was an open space open space building, right? So we had open space classes, not your traditional classes. So, you know, our challenge was more of being able to stay focused when all that was going on, right? Because you can see somebody else's class while your instructor is trying to teach their class, right? Then you, like you said, you had a lot of neighborhood feuds, you know, Central City, Eastgate, Bennett Park, A Street. So, you know, we had a lot of challenges, but again, in each individual, sometimes you had to have self-motivation, self-determination, also examples, right? And like my mom would tell you, you know, by seeing a lot of sacrifices, then we was at one time staying with my grandmother. And so my grandmother said, you know, your mom works very hard. And so the best way you can pay her back is to go get that knowledge, educate, pass the classes, and do what you need to do. And so I say a lot of Fletcher Johnson classmates are very, very successful. We've had young men who became Grammy nominated songwriters. You know, we've had people that could have played in Major League Baseball like Ricardo Gibson. You know, so everybody's situation is different, but like you said, now students do have a lot more resources. They do have the support, right? But it also goes back to, like I said, parenting. My mom made the difference, right? Because a lot of my peers were raising themselves too, right? A lot of them were older siblings trying to take care of their younger siblings, right? And then again, survival mode during the crack epidemic, during the neighborhood feuds. It took a lot on a lot of families, a lot of communities. And so that definitely, you know, I thank my mom for making that sacrifice.
I just mentioned one. I got beautiful. When I first met you, I said your grandparent. Your grandparent. Beautiful.
Right.
You raised two more out.
Yeah.
I knew you all early.
Right. Right.
Just
Yeah.
just the person they were.
Right.
So they go back to family.
Go back to family.
Mom, that's happening.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, mom.
Right.
Uncle.
Right.
You see, so you follow your, yeah, good uncles.
Yeah.
Need you two more houses.
No question. No question.
Unfortunately, I didn't graduate. I had a niece that I heard to go spell with.
Right.
She's a psychiatrist in Atlanta.
That's
She never
beautiful.
came back.
Right. Beautiful.
And she's got sick.
Yeah.
But I was like, the public school system, you think we're
Right. Good.
So,
and then I
You wanna- give her a microphone. You got an extra microphone? You can take Ashley's place.
So Ricky, Tim said, you know, he's doing a We Are War 7 podcast, so he's gonna put you on the list, so he can interview you probably for the next couple episodes. He got you.
Because you took over this episode.
That's for Davis finals. Yeah, get him on the list. Get him on the list. Get him on the list. All these people in here, you should sign up, have a list, and sign up. Go ahead.
That's what's up. Coming out Ward 7, you spent time in PG County, then you spent time in Atlanta. So
Yes, sir.
Those experiences getting away from DC, how did that help you when you come back to the city as a person that's been outside? 'Cause we like a lot of people that, one, they probably ain't been out the city.
Right.
Some folks ain't even been out across the river.
That's right.
Some folks ain't even been out their neighborhood.
Right.
I met a girl back in the day
Mm-hmm.
from Southeast.
Okay.
She was living up here on Southern Avenue.
Right.
I took her downtown on a date.
Mm-hmm.
You took the train from Potomac Avenue
Okay.
to Metro Center.
Mm-hmm.
And that short little ride, we come out Metro Center, and this
Right.
is back when they had like ESPN
Right.
Zone and a lot of stuff down there before the pandemic. You would have thought I took her to Paris.
Okay.
She was just so amazed at
Mhm.
the buildings
Right.
and the people because
Right.
she ain't never been out of Southeast.
Okay.
We got a lot of people that's never been out of their neighborhoods,
Right.
like just what they used to.
Right. Right.
So they don't really understand how much is out there to know what to bring
Right. That's
to
right.
their community
That's right.
as an adult. So how
Right.
did those experiences getting away from DC through high school,
Yeah.
PG, going to a whole nother state down
Right.
south?
Right.
What did you learn in those moments that allowed you to bring them back to Ward 7 as you came back to be a resident of Ward 7 again?
It was a major adjustment leaving Hannah Place with my mom to go to Upper Marlboro because all of my friends I grew up with, I had to leave them and go to a different part of the DMV, right? So they call it. So I was more of an introvert. It's hard to believe. I was more of an introvert in high school. I pretty much stayed to myself. I really didn't talk to a lot of people because, like my mom told you, the Kelly Tech was always in my view. I wanted to go there for the mass media program. But, you know, overall, I made the best of it. I said, you know, I found out that I wanted to go to Morehouse by about my junior year. And so I started working even harder in the classroom to say, you know, I'm gonna eventually get out of this high school and then I'm gonna take my journey down to the ATL. Well, in Atlanta though, Tim, it was one of those phenomenal experiences, right? A lot of you meet a lot of Morehouse men that tell you Morehouse changed their life, but my story is Morehouse saved my life, right? I have an uncle, Martin Qualls, who taught me as a young boy to always read the Washington Post, right? And so I made the Washington Post my daily routine. And while I was in Atlanta, I read the Washington Post every day. And I learned about what was going on in DC while I was in college. You know, I would, you know, in between my classes, my courses, you know, taking Shakespeare, taking Canterbury Tales, African American Studies, I was reading the Washington Post. And my mom, sometime I would come home, it's like, how did you know so much about the city? You should be down there focusing on them academics. There's no way the young man can know that much about his hometown, and he's trying to become a Morehouse man. But I made time now, right? You know, some of my students now, I work with high school students right now, and the number one thing we talk about is time management, right? And so when you have that free time, you know, that time where you know you can occupy doing something productive. My productivity was reading that Washington Post, man. And so from there, you know, back then we had what we called the I think Ricky could tell you about the Atlanta University DC Metro Club. So the AUC, we had a DC Metro Club, and so one year I became the vice president of the AUC DC Metro Club. We planned down there, so that's when I found out. You know, I'm pretty much walking in my purpose when I came back here, but I was a vice president. We planned events, we did community service events. We had a basketball game, Tim, where we played the Dirty South. So it's DC Metro versus some guys from Texas. We ended up winning. But it was a battle though. It was a battle. The Texas guys like, oh man, y'all DC dudes cheating, man. You guys are cheating. I'm saying, no, we just good in what we do, right?
Yeah.
And so with that weekend, it was the AUC DC Metro weekend. We did a community service event. We had the basketball game, and then we had a go-go band down there called EXO. EXO band. You might know about EXO because this year they won the go-go award for the best go-go band outside the DMV. So EXO had been around since 1996. So I pretty much was always involved with DC Metro, but also I met some of my best friends in Atlanta, man. One of my best friends he's from Chicago. Shout out to my man Kermaine. We met in 1996. That's what, 30 years, man. 30 years. I met my man Kermaine. We talk at least maybe once or twice throughout the weeks, and we built a lifetime friendship. And then I met young men from Germany, met young men from Jamaica. I mean, all across the globe. It's a lot of folks. I mean, Morehouse it was just a game changer. But I always wanted to stay in tune to the city. And then Tim also, when I was in Atlanta, I tutored some young kids in Bankhead. You know about Bankhead, right? Bankhead is where T.I.'s from.
Yeah.
Right? That's where Clifford Harris, right? And so one of my Morehouse older brothers, he said, Evan, I'm about to do some tutoring. And so I said, where are you doing this tutoring? He said, man, it's a neighborhood in the community called Bankhead, not too far from campus. And so you know what I said? I think I might want to try to come tutor some kids. So I started tutoring some third graders in Bankhead. And I found my other gift of like working with these kids, man, because that was like every other day. I'm like, when are we going to Bankhead to tutor some of these young men and young ladies, man? And so way before the country knew about T.I., I already knew about T.I. So he wasn't nothing new. He knew to pretty much a lot of people like after he arrived, but I already knew about Clifford Harris because Atlanta is big, but then it's small too. And so I was actually in his neighborhood tutoring some of the young ladies, young men. Thank you.
So coming back to Ward 7, when did you come back to Ward 7?
2004.
So pretty much a couple years after graduation. So you come back to Ward 7, what was like going on once you came back, early 2000s?
I talk about Fletcher Johnson a lot. My first job in education, George Rutherford was my principal at Fletcher Johnson. And, I told you I read the Post, and I'm always trying to stay equipped on what's going on in the city. So I said, I want to go into education. And so I found out that Dr. Rutherford was at a school called Idea Public Charter School, uptown on Peabody Street. And so interviewed for that job. And Dr. Rutherford gave me the opportunity to go into education and become a teacher. So from there, I started mentoring. And then ANC life. I started going to all these meetings, Tim, but Mary Jackson and Rosa Hamlin and Nightingale, so the list goes on, right? And so they used to have all of these meetings. And so Ms. Hamlin said, young man, you always coming to these public meetings. She's like, you seem like you're pretty engaged. I'm like, well, I really just want to learn what's going on, right? I want to be civically engaged and find out what's going on in different communities, right? And so, from there, I started really giving back through basketball. Started coaching basketball at the Bennett Park Rec Center. Found some young men. They said, you think you might want to coach us? So I said, let's do it. And so my first group was like a 16 and under group. Dante and Parnell Motley, Dwayne, AJ, just to name a few. But all those guys said, we need a coach. And so from there, I started coaching 16U. And then there was the baby group. After them, it was the 11U. And that team, Tim, we won 11-1. We won 11 straight games and lost in the championship. But that group was special, man. I'm talking about special.
So moving on, you become a married man.
Yes, sir.
And a father of three boys.
Three boys.
Raising them in Ward 7.
Yes, sir.
Same way you was raised in Ward 7, same street, all that. So what is it like? What have you taken from your time growing up in Ward 7, being parented in Ward 7 to now parenting in Ward 7?
It's a surreal type moment because I live a block away from the house I grew up in. So when I leave out of my house in Marshall Heights, I can look to my left, look up the hill and see the house I grew up in. It's surreal, man. It's like magic, man, because, just to come full circle, you never know where life is going to lead you, but you just trust in God. I'm a praying man. My family come from, teaches them, the Holy Bible and God and love, and it's God, family, and education. That's what I learned in the household I was raised in. With those three, you can't go wrong, right? And so God, in that order, in that order. So with those three, principles and lifelong lessons, man, it's just been phenomenal. My boys, they have so many questions. They're 8, 6, and 4. So they're like, Dad, this is the house you grew up in. And
Are they future Morehouse with?
good question. Morehouse got to give them that money. Morehouse had the money, and then they'll go down to their tier. Yeah, so right now, Morehouse is $50,000 a year. Yeah, $50,000 a year. So if the money's right, we'll make it an option. If the money's right. Put it in God's hands. Put it in. There you go. There you go. Yeah, but talking about the three boys and my wife. My wife is from the suburbs of Baltimore. So because we believed in one another, she wanted to move to Marshall Heights. She believed in what I was doing with ANC work, my ambitions, my inspiration, my goals, and coming back to the community. So, when you talk about your spouse, you got to make sure that spouse believes in what you're doing, but also believe in what they're doing, right? Because it's a team, man. You got to make sure that whoever that you're connected with for a lifetime, they believe in what you're doing. And my wife believed everything what I'm doing, becoming a leader in Marshall Heights. And so it's been a joy, man. A lot of folks have a stain, they have a stigma. They have issues about the past of Marshall Heights, the stories about Bennett Park and the stories about Bennett Road. But I always believe that not just me, but the community, we can still make a difference. You can still make an impact. You still can transform your community. Everybody, just like my boy Antoine and I say, you just got to have some motion. The motion, you have to have boots on the ground to make a difference. I mean, because everybody, you see in DC, just a lot of talks, but you got to have a fulfilling type of mindset that you want to change your atmosphere, right? And I think, I give a lot of credit to Morehouse, my mom, my grandmother, grandparents. I mean, even in losing my dad at a young age, he gave me some stories about what it was like growing up in Lincoln Heights, right? And so I learned a little bit about his own struggles. And then again, I lost my brother to gun violence when he was 26. And so I have a lot of life learned lessons, Tim. That's what I would say, right? And I think, we're talking about breaking cycles too, man. You're talking about breaking cycles. It's just like my wife and I, we talk all the time, and she says, you nurture your sons. I remember when I was growing up, my dad wouldn't even allow me to hug him. I kiss my boys, man. I hug my boys. I tell them, whenever you need to come talk to Dad, let's talk. Because I'm going to be the game changer about what I didn't have. You know what I'm saying? And I think all the Black men here in the city, we can do that. We can be the game changer. We just got to believe in ourselves and believe in one another to take these communities back. That's what it's going to take. It doesn't take elections. It doesn't take you just posting everything across the city. It takes work. It takes a lot of work. And I want to leave an example for my boys, man, because I'm like, you guys are brothers. So you always going to have each other. You always going to have each other. But Dad and Mom, we're going to be here. So they love their house, Tim. They like it in Marshall Heights pretty much.
They running the streets in Marshall Heights?
We're taking a Woody Wood every now and then. And then sometimes we're taking the Bennett Ridge every now and then. But, it's some work that we got to do in Marshall Heights. But that's throughout the city.
You don't really grow up in the neighborhood till you shed blood in the neighborhood. Where it was a knee scrape, a fight, something. Somebody got to bleed in the neighborhood before you are officially partners. So let them out, open the door, let them run and come back bloody.
There you go.
And then they'll be official.
Am I listening? She like, let's talk with a different convo about that one.
Yeah, boy, you gotta let the boys go out.
Yeah.
That's how you experience. It's about expressing when you experience the neighborhood and getting out there doing stuff like that will happen. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna trip and fall.
That's right.
Gonna get up and you're gonna get into a little scrap with your friends and somebody gonna bleed.
Yeah.
And that's just a sign of how much you've been engaged.
So my oldest son actually played flag football for Marshall Heights. Mm-hmm. Marshall Heights has a legacy of athletic stars, NFL players. The list goes on and on. And so it was special that he was able to play at least a good season with the Bison, right? And so I'm always happy to talk about Marshall Heights success. And, I'm always praying that they keep the legacy going. At one time, Marshall Heights started out at number 14 Boys and Girls Club, right? And so all those young men, Takia talked about, how a lot of them grew up in the Boys and Girls Club that no longer exists, but, by their teachings, by the coaches and father figures and mentors that helped them, now they're coaches and they're trying to give back. So it was great to have full circle moment of my boy playing for Marshall Heights. So, we just got to keep these organizations supported, and then try to invest in these organizations, nonprofit.
Yes, sir. We'll open it up to any questions for Ebbon about his journey through life as a person born and raised in Ward 7, currently in Ward 7, doing good things in Ward 7. Any questions for Ebbon before we wrap up?
I got a question. That might be not too much of that. I go to a therapeutic,
Joy Evans. Yes, sir.
In 1 year since February, got therapeutic food. A lot of seniors going on there. But I ride past Fletcher Johnson, and I was disappointed when it kind of knocked it down.
Yes, sir.
I thought it could be used for homeless shelter.
No question. No question.
So that's a paid job. They turned it down little by little bit.
Right.
And I know they regret having to turn that whole day down. I live in 4 days community.
Right.
I was kind of disappointed they turned that whole day. They only got $27 million. So how much $1 million could they use to tear down our whole day?
For Davis, right?
You could upgrade their life back.
Right.
I ride past Fletcher Johnson.
Yes, sir.
See the job that they trying to. It might be a whole nother year before they drop that.
Well, they're not going to knock the whole thing down, Ricky. That's an excellent observation. There's going to be a 24-hour freestanding health center, right? At one time, the old Fletcher Johnson Task Force talked about having mixed-use housing with amenities. All of a sudden, the city said, we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on a freestanding health center. It's going to be run by Cedar Hill. Yes.
Did they have one? I thought they said something.
At one time, yeah, it was a one-stop shop. At one point, it was. Yeah, it was like we call it the educational center. Yeah. Right. So you have ANC commissioners in the room. One's next to you. She's with ANC 7E, and so the commissioners of 7E definitely should give you and provide a little bit more context and support about. Yeah. Well, the emergency center won't open until 2029, right? Yeah, 2029, and then 2029. And you remember that's a year before the RFK is supposed to be completed, right? So you gotta look at the writings on the wall, right? You gotta look at the writings on the wall, and then you gotta also look at Fort Davis. When is Fort Davis slated to open up? 2027, right? So that's 2 years before the health center is supposed to open up. But where are the constituents going to be able to go while we wait? Those are the questions you got to ask. Where are the constituents going while we still have to wait? And then if you're talking about phase 2, because Fletcher Johnson is in 2 phases. The first phase is the freestanding health center. The second phase is the mixed-use housing. But it's no guarantee that we're going to get the amenities that the task force demanded and asked for, right? So we know that the freestanding health center is coming. That's already set in stone. But the question remains is what's going to happen with the mixed-use housing and amenities that the task force have hard worked for with the council members, with the ANC commissioners, with the civic associations, with Marshall Heights Development Corporation. We've been over 100 meetings, and then when we learned that some of the meetings with 7E, like last month, Tim, they talked about the phase 2 might not be done until 2039. 2032. Yeah, so again, there's no consistency on the delivery on dates, and these are the questions that I always ask, like, where's the consistent message? You went from 2039 and you're saying it's 2032. So what's the actual year, right? Because the demolition, remember we talked about, was on pause, right? And then also you look at, Ricky, what's going on at Cedar Hill and Ward 8. There's so many complaints about Cedar Hill and Ward 8, and this is the same group that's supposed to run the Fletcher Johnson Freestanding Health Center. So you got, again, get the writings on the wall. And then the other thing, guys, is that folks throughout the city really have to, be engaged with what's going on in their communities, right? It's more than just trying to elect someone. It's also critical to be at these meetings like you've done for all these years to sit at the table and advocate, right? I work at Anacostia High School, Tim, and so a lot of these scholars are in student government association. They want to become young ambassadors, right? It has to start somewhere because some of our youth are sick and tired of people have given them broken promises, right?
Agitate.
Okay, agitate. Okay. Right.
He ever participated in very some of
Youth diploma, yeah.
So my neighbor Googled and Perkins Eastman had. They Hutchinson is all from DC.
Right.
Deanwood.
Yeah. Right.
So I asked him if he ever just two kids for the summer.
Right, for the summer.
He said, so I told him, I go to good friend said we decided to force them to have two. You can hire two people.
You can hire 2 people.
That's personal because I remember, from Blue Man, all of us were down to Morehouse.
Right.
Do a degree.
Do a degree.
You go 3 years Morehouse.
Yep, 2 years Georgia Tech. Yep, that's right.
So for them to make all this money and not to hire 2 of those kids. So we pushing that. We pushing people who built it.
Right.
20 years ago, I saw somebody East of the River Realty suggested that they hire within the community at least 5 acres.
Right. It's a percentage, at least 32, 35%. Yeah.
So it's not hard.
Right.
You got to agitate.
Agitate.
Do what's right.
Understood. And then Tim, before we roll out, man, I do want to make a big announcement about the Juneteenth parade that's taking place on June the 19th. It's in Ward 7. So I know you're gonna have your podcast there. Have folks lined up to talk to you at the Juneteenth parade, June 19th.
What part of it was? Because
I think it's Pennsylvania Avenue and Branch.
Okay.
Yeah, but we have a lot of folks that's signing up. We definitely want all the high schools to sign up, marching bands, organizations, nonprofits, civic leaders, public officials. It's election season, so after June 16th, we'll see who'll be able to take that march with us after June 16th. Good, Ricky.
Ebbon, right? I believe the community. He ain't simple city. He knows enough of his neighborhood that he could get support. You gotta go back to people. I would like to have to see run again. Better manager.
Do you hear me?
Ricky, you gonna throw your name in
the hat?
Yeah,
You said you gonna throw your name in the hat, Ricky?
Don't leave it up to nobody else to do it. They don't do it right, you do it yourself.
Right.
I would like to do youth council.
Yeah. Well, Rick, we do have, make sure that some of the folks in the room, that you definitely get to sign up to continue the podcast. I congratulate you too, man, on starting this thing, man, because the more folks you have from Ward 7 to give their narrative, it'll make a difference because, we're inspiring the new generation of leaders, man. So these young people need to know the history, the foundation of what makes Ward 7 thrive. It's going to be a game changer.
Any other questions for Ebbon before we leave? They don't want to.
Thank you.
They know all they want to know.
You can also follow me at Mr. E. Allen on Instagram and Ebbon Allen on Facebook. Shout out to my wife and my 3 young kings, T. Appreciate you.
Why you bring them with you?
Man, they chilling with mom, man. It's mom and son's time. I'm gonna get them for Easter tomorrow.
Shout out to your mom.
Oh yeah. Thanks, Rick. ANC Commissioner Gail S. Perkins. She is single member District 7003. We have Commissioner Angie Sidnall with ANC 7B01, I believe. 7B08. We got Brother Darren, who's a comedian and activist, in Ward 7 around the Benning Ridge community as well. We have Takia Shire that's in the building. Fletcher Johnson, Anacostia alum, and Antoine Harris. Antoine Jordan. Yeah. Jordan has been in the building. He's definitely proactive. They call him Twan Bow. Twan Bow to the Twan.
We're gonna wrap up.
Thank you, guys.
We're gonna wrap up this first edition of the We Are Seven podcast that will be available exclusively on the Great Award 7 Facebook group. So if you ain't a part of the group, make sure you check it out. So when any new podcast from the We Are Award 7 podcast is available, you can catch it right there. I'm the one and only Super Ted. Make sure you catch me in the streets, catch me in the studio, catch me online, because you ain't there. You ain't nowhere. I'm the one and only Super Ted. And I'm out.